She smiled like someone who already knew how this would end. It wasn't the kind of smile that invited, it warned. The kind that said, "Don't start unless you're ready to finish." And I wasn't. Not really. But I stayed there anyway, standing too close in the doorway of her office, the scent of rain still on my jacket, the sound of her pen clicking against the desk filling the silence between us. Her name was Elena. She was the kind of woman who moved like time obeyed her, not the other way around. Mid-40s, hair tied up in a loose knot that never quite held, a silver strand escaping down the side of her neck. Every time she reached for her coffee, it swayed slightly, brushing her cheek, like it had its own quiet rhythm. I'd come by to return a book. That was the excuse, at least. The truth was harder to name, something like gravity, or curiosity, or both. "You always show up after everyone's gone," she said, not looking up. "I like quiet places." She smiled again, this time softer, almost amused. "Quiet places have the loudest thoughts." Her words landed somewhere between accusation and invitation. I leaned against the doorframe, pretending to look around her office, half-empty shelves, one window half open, a small plant leaning toward the evening light. Everything about her space felt deliberate and tired at once. She finally met my eyes. It wasn't long, 2, maybe 3 seconds, but it was long enough for the air to thicken. There was something in the way she looked at me, like she was measuring distance, or danger. "You shouldn't look at people that long," I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. "Then maybe you shouldn't notice," she replied. The way she said it, steady, almost bored, made it worse. I laughed under my breath, shaking my head, trying to find somewhere else to put my hands. "Are you always this calm when someone flirts with you?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly, that same half-smile returning. "You think that's what you're doing?" The room went quiet again. Only the faint hum of the overhead light, the ticking of her watch, the sound of my own pulse trying to steady itself. I stepped forward, just enough for the scent of her perfume, something like sandalwood and rain, to reach me. She didn't move. "Maybe you're trouble," I said, breaking the silence. "Then lose yourself in me," she whispered, almost too quietly to catch. For a second, I thought I'd imagined it. Something shifted then, not in the room, but in her. Her eyes softened, like she regretted letting the words out. She looked down at her desk, fingers tightening around her pen. "I shouldn't have said that," she murmured. "But you did," I said. She stood, suddenly, too quickly. The chair rolled back, the pen dropped. The movement startled me, broke whatever spell had been weaving itself between us. "I think you should go," she said, though her tone didn't match the words. I nodded slowly, backing toward the door. But I didn't leave right away. She was looking anywhere but at me, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. The silence hung there, thick, trembling, alive. Then, just as I reached for the handle, there was a knock from the hallway. A man's voice, casual, familiar, calling her name. She froze. Our eyes met one last time. And that's when I realized, whatever this was, it had already started. I didn't see her for a week after that night. But she stayed everywhere, in the rhythm of her words, the way she said quiet places have the loudest thoughts. I caught myself replaying it, like a song I didn't want to admit I liked. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't in her office. It was at the cafe near campus, the one that always smelled like burnt espresso and wet pavement. She was sitting by the window, glasses sliding halfway down her nose, a half-finished manuscript beside her. I almost walked past. Almost. She looked up before I decided. Noah. Just my name, but it landed heavier than it should have. I ordered coffee just to have a reason to stay. She didn't ask me to sit, but she didn't tell me not to either. "You always work here?" I asked. "Sometimes," she said, eyes on her papers. "My apartment's too quiet." I wanted to ask why, but her tone made it sound like the kind of quiet you don't interrupt. She glanced up after a moment, studied me the way she always did, like she was trying to find the thing I wasn't saying. "You look tired." Can't sleep much lately. Why not? I hesitated. Then, before I could think better of it, said, I keep thinking about the last time we talked. That made her pause. Her hand froze mid-sentence, pen hovering over the page. You shouldn't, she said softly. Why not? Because it's easier that way. The light shifted, falling across her face. It caught the small lines near her eyes, not flaws, just stories. She noticed me looking and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, as if to hide from it. Was he your husband? I asked before I could stop myself. Her hand dropped. He was, she said. Past tense. I nodded. Sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. Some things end long before they're over. There was a quiet after that, not awkward, just heavy with the things neither of us knew how to ask. When I stood to leave, she reached for her cup at the same moment I reached for mine. Our hands brushed, light, accidental, but not meaningless. Her fingers lingered a heartbeat too long before she pulled back. She looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw something like fear flicker across her face. Not of me, but of herself. Noah, she said quietly, you're young. You don't know what this could do. I should have agreed, laughed it off, said something easy. But instead I asked, do you? Her lips parted slightly, no answer, no defense. Just breathe between us. The air seemed to fold inward. The sound of rain outside, the faint hum of a blender behind the counter, everything else faded. Then she reached out, barely, fingertips grazing the sleeve of my jacket, and said, You should go before I forget who I'm supposed to be. I turned to leave, but her hand caught my wrist, soft, uncertain. Next week, she said. Same time. And when I looked back at her, the corner of her mouth lifted, not quite a smile, not quite surrender. Just the quiet start of something neither of us could name. It was supposed to be nothing, just coffee, again. That's what she'd said when I walked into the cafe the next week, trying to sound casual, trying to make what we were doing sound normal. But normal wasn't the word for how the air shifted when she looked up. Her hair was down this time, a small thing, but it undid me. Strands falling across her face, softening her edges. She smiled when she saw me, small, quick, and something in me forgot how to breathe. I sat across from her. The same table. The same 2 coffees cooling between us. Rough week? She asked. More like slow. She laughed quietly, stirring her drink even though she hadn't added anything to it. Slow is good. It's safer. Since when have you cared about safe? I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lifted, steady, sharp. Since I learned what it costs not to. For a while neither of us spoke. The street outside blurred with passing cars, gray light bending through the glass. She kept glancing at me, like she was trying to decide whether to say something or to stay silent forever. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. You remind me of someone I used to be brave for. I didn't know what that meant, but it stayed with me. Her phone buzzed on the table, sudden, jarring. She reached for it quickly, too quickly. The name flashed across the screen before she turned it face down, Daniel. I didn't ask. I didn't have to. Her fingers tightened around the cup. He's a colleague, she said too evenly. We used to. She stopped. Never mind. I nodded, pretending not to notice how her hand trembled slightly before she set the cup down. When our eyes met again, the distance between us had changed, not closer, but more exposed. Like we'd both stepped out onto thin ice and could hear it cracking. The cafe door opened suddenly, the wind carried in a voice. Professor Hart? Elena froze. A young woman, maybe 20, walked in, familiar face from the literature department. She waved, smiling. Didn't expect to see you here. Elena's tone shifted instantly, warm, professional. Just grading papers, she said, sliding a folder between us. And you? The girl looked at me curious. You're one of her former students, right? Yeah, I said quickly. Just catching up. She nodded, oblivious, and left after a moment. But the moment stretched long enough to leave a mark. When the door closed again, neither of us moved. Elena exhaled slowly, eyes still on the folder. You see? That's why this can't. But she didn't finish. Because when she looked up, I was already leaning in. Not enough to touch. Just enough to feel the warmth of her breath mix with mine. She didn't pull away. Her hand, resting on the table, brushed mine barely. Her fingers curled, uncertain then stilled. If we stop now, I whispered, does it really change what's already happened? She closed her eyes for a moment, as if steadying herself. It changes what might. The space between us was nothing, a breath, a heartbeat, and yet she stood suddenly, breaking it. But before she walked away, she paused beside me, her hand briefly on my shoulder. Her thumb traced the edge of my collar, quick, hidden, real. Then she said without turning, next time, don't come looking for me. And still, her touch lingered long after she was gone. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself 100 times. And still, I ended up outside her building, second floor, pale light in the window, the sound of rain hitting the metal awning. I stood there too long, pretending I hadn't already decided. When the door finally opened, she didn't look surprised. You shouldn't be here, Elena said, voice low, tired, like she'd been rehearsing that line all evening. I know. She didn't move aside, but she didn't close the door either. The rain thickened behind me, a curtain of sound that made the hallway feel private. Her hair was damp, loose around her shoulders. She was barefoot, sweater hanging off one shoulder, a glass of red wine still half full on the table behind her. It felt like walking into a memory that hadn't happened yet. Say something, I said. She sighed, the sound barely audible over the rain. You don't understand what this looks like. Then tell me what it feels like. That stopped her. For the first time, she looked right at me, really looked. It feels, she said slowly, like standing on a ledge you built yourself. Inside, everything was soft light and the faint smell of wet wood. She set her glass down, turned away as if that would make it easier. I thought I could manage it, she said. You were supposed to be a distraction. Something harmless. I stepped closer. And I wasn't? She gave a broken laugh. You never are. You look at people like you already know what they'll say if you just wait long enough. I don't do that with everyone. No, she said, quieter now. Just me. The space between us vanished without a sound. Her back brushed against the edge of the counter. My hand hovered unsure, then found the courage to tuck the stray strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't move. Her breath caught, not loud, just enough to fill the room. This isn't fair to you, she whispered. Then be unfair. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away again. The tremor in her fingers betrayed her before her words could. Do you know what people would say? She asked. I don't care. You will. Her hands gripped the counter now, white-knuckled. I could see the battle playing out in her. Desire and damage, both refusing to lose. You make me feel. She started, then stopped. What? She shook her head, as if saying it would undo something she'd worked years to hold together. So I said it for her. Alive? Her eyes closed, and a tear, or maybe rain, slipped down her cheek. She exhaled, finally, and when she looked up again, her voice was barely more than breath. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. The silence that followed was pure electricity, fragile, waiting. And just as her hand reached up, fingers grazing my jaw, the sharp knock at the door shattered everything. We both froze. A voice, muffled but close. Elena? You home? Her lips parted, not in answer, not in goodbye, just suspended there, inches from mine. The knock came again, harder this time. Her breath hitched, she stepped back fast, bumping into the counter, eyes darting toward the door. It's Daniel, she whispered. Her voice was so small I almost didn't recognize it. Before I could move, she crossed the room and opened the door just enough to block me from view. Daniel, she said, calm but too steady. It's late. I saw your light, he said. His tone, casual on the surface, but threaded with something else. You didn't answer my texts. I've been grading. A pause. I could feel it, the pause where he knew she was lying. Then he said, There's a car outside. Yours? Her shoulders stiffened. I hadn't parked far enough. Stupid. It's mine, she said quickly. A friend stopped by. I could hear the tremor she tried to hide. Anyone I know? Daniel's voice shifted, lighter, like he already suspected the answer. She laughed, but it cracked at the end. No one important. The words hit harder than they should have. When he finally left, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall, the silence came rushing back. She stood with her back to the door, head lowered, both hands gripping the handle like she was afraid it would open again. Then she turned, eyes finding me in the half-light. You shouldn't have come here, she said, barely more than a whisper. I needed to see you. Her lips parted, to argue, to breathe, I don't know. She walked past me, too close, the sleeve of her sweater brushing my arm, and it felt like electricity crawling under my skin. He knows, she murmured. Or at least he suspects. Is he? A colleague. And once, a mistake I pretended was love. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The weight in her tone already said everything. She sank onto the couch, pulling her knees close like she was trying to make herself smaller. He still thinks he can fix me. Can he? I asked softly. She looked up at me, tired eyes, lips pressed tight. I'm not something to fix. I know. Something in my voice must have reached her, because she blinked hard, like she wanted to stop herself from believing me. She stood again, moving past me toward the window. You don't understand what I've done. What I've let happen. Then tell me. She turned sharply, eyes glinting. I knew what I was doing from the start, Noah. I saw it in the way you looked at me that first day, and I didn't stop you. I didn't want to. The air between us cracked open. So this is your confession? I said. It's my warning. She stepped closer until I could feel her breath against my skin, her voice trembling but low. If you stay, it won't end kindly. For either of us. Her hand lifted, hovered near my chest, almost touching, and fell again. But she didn't move away this time. Instead, she whispered, And yet if you asked me to, I couldn't make you leave. It rained again that night. Not the soft kind that hums in the background, the kind that drums against glass, relentless, like it's trying to wash something clean. I found myself outside her door again, no reason left to give. When she opened it, she didn't speak. She just looked at me, eyes red-rimmed, hair pulled back carelessly, like she'd already been through the argument she knew we were about to have. Why are you here? She asked finally. Because you didn't tell me not to be. She almost smiled at that, then shook her head. You never listen. Not to things I don't believe. And what's that supposed to mean? That this, whatever this is, isn't wrong. It's real. She turned away, walking deeper into the apartment. I followed, closing the door behind me. The sound of the rain faded into a hush. Real doesn't mean right, she said quietly. Right doesn't mean honest, I countered. She stopped then, standing by the window. The city lights spilled across her face, soft and pale. You think this is about honesty? She said. You're 25, Noah. You still believe everything you feel is supposed to save you. And you? I asked. You've spent so long pretending nothing can. The words hit harder than I meant. She flinched small, but there. I crossed the room, slowly. She didn't move. Look at me, I said. She did. And for the first time, she didn't look guarded. Just tired. Human. Beautiful in a way that hurt to see. My hand lifted, hesitant, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught, eyes closing for half a second before opening again. This is where we stop, she whispered. You said that last time. And I meant it. Then why are you shaking? Her lips parted, but no sound came. The distance between us was gone now, her chest rising against mine, the air warm, heavy with everything we'd never said. "If I kiss you," I said, "you can still pull away." She let out a trembling laugh. "You think I haven't been trying to?" Silence. The kind that isn't empty, the kind that holds everything. Then, her hand came up, fingers tracing the line of my jaw, the back of her knuckles grazing my lips. The gesture was slow, trembling, full of things she couldn't say. "I used to believe people like you were my undoing," she said. "And now? Now I'm not sure I want to be saved." The space between us disappeared. Her forehead rested against mine. Neither of us moved, because to move would be to choose. The rain outside softened. The world seemed to hold its breath. She whispered, "If we cross this line, we don't go back." I know. Our lips were a breath apart, the moment suspended, trembling, inevitable. And then, with her eyes still open, she said, barely audible, "Then let it happen." Morning crept in quietly, soft light spilling through half-drawn curtains. The rain had stopped some time before dawn, leaving behind the faint scent of wet pavement, and the echo of what couldn't be undone. Elena sat by the window, knees drawn up, her sweater slipping off one shoulder. She was watching the street below, the world already moving again, while I sat a few feet away, watching her. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence wasn't tense this time. It was full, calm in a way that felt earned. "You should be at work," I said. She smiled faintly. "You sound like someone who still believes I follow rules." I moved closer, sitting beside her. Our shoulders brushed, light, but steady. "Do you regret it?" I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. "No," she said finally. "But I'm scared I should." I nodded, understanding without needing to. "You're thinking about what they'll say. I've been doing that my whole life." She turned toward me. "You haven't. Maybe I should start." She laughed softly, that low, real laugh I'd been chasing since the first day I met her. "Don't," she said. "It doesn't suit you." The city was awake now, car horns, footsteps, the soft clatter of a delivery truck outside. The world hadn't stopped for us, but it felt different anyway. "I keep thinking," she said after a while, "maybe this is just one of those things that burns bright and ruins everything." "Maybe," I said. "But sometimes ruin's the only honest thing left." She looked at me then, really looked, like she was trying to memorize the shape of what we'd done, who we'd become inside it. "I didn't plan this," she said. "Neither did I." Her hand found mine slowly, fingers uncertain at first, then sure. She didn't look away. "You make me feel seen," she said softly. "That's terrifying." "I know," I said, squeezing her hand. "It's terrifying for me, too." We sat like that, just breathing, listening to the quiet hum of the world outside. There was no grand speech, no promise. Just the quiet understanding that we were still here, in the aftermath of a choice that could change everything, and yet, somehow, it felt right. After a while, I leaned in, resting my forehead against hers. She closed her eyes, exhaling slow, steady. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "don't let this become another thing we pretend didn't matter." "I won't." Her fingers tightened around mine, warm and real. And for the first time, either of us pulled away. The morning light softened around us, wrapping everything in that tender kind of stillness that only comes after something has finally been said, or done, that was waiting too long. Noah and Elena. Not professor and student. Not wrong and right. Just two people, finally honest in the same quiet space.